Right, it is media mess that is distracting marketers from being marketers. That's our hypothesis today. And it's been prompted actually by quite a lot of stuff that we've been exposed to in the last couple of weeks. Just starting to hint at this crappy media supply chain and the quality of advertising, state of advertising. The first thing that's been maybe an indicator of some of these problems is some bad results that are coming out of kind of content businesses and publisher businesses. We've had BuzzFeed and Vice both issue kind of warnings. They're going to miss their targets. Mashable, really big, very famous content business, has just been sold for 20% of the value that it had about 18 months ago. And then Oath laying off about 500 staff. These are ad-funded businesses, but they seem to be struggling. So something's kind of going on, something's going wrong.
Another thing that we saw this week was GroupM publishing a brilliant report called The State of the Video, which was critique on how consumers view advertising. And their conclusion was that we're becoming far more intolerant towards advertising. Probably the biggest indicator of this is the upsurge of ad blocking technology, especially on mobile. So that's 30% up since last year. So consumers blocking advertising on mobile.
So that's a well-known kind of indicator, perhaps, of the state of advertising. Is that nobody really likes it. Another thing that we read about, and it's hard to find data which really, or studies that really look into the attention that we pay to advertising, because the hypothesis is now that we are so distracted by other things and we have the opportunity to pay less attention to advertising. There's a Harvard Business School report. The data is a bit old because it ends about kind of 4 or 5 years ago, but it shows a marked decline over the previous kind of decade and a half in the attention that we're paying to TV ads, even just TV ads at the time.
And even those that are watching TV ads, if they have the ability to fast forward and get through them, then 90% we see actually are doing so.
So people are avoiding advertising, closing out of advertising. I mean, it's a pretty, this is probably well understood, but it's the experience and the quality of advertising is really kind of at a low point. Now that could be a reason that we've had seen such success in ad-free content models, not least Netflix. HBO was really probably the big first bastion of that. Netflix, Amazon Video now kind of following suit, which haven't carried advertising. Although there were rumours last week that was going to change.
That's right. Amazon Prime suggested that they were going to perhaps have an ad model, a version of Amazon Prime that was going to be carrying advertising. But I think they've disputed that. Well,
they've denied that that's going to be the case. But that was another thing that really kind of got us interested in thinking about this idea. Amazon Prime, again, it's like you pay for Prime Video. You pay in much the way the same you do with Netflix to have an ad-free experience. That there's a cost that goes with that. Now, Amazon have denied that they're going to launch a Prime model that's free but carries ads. But we wouldn't be surprised if somewhere along the line that becomes the case, whether that's Apple or Netflix or Amazon, one of those, to have an ad model that gives you access for free. And that's where it becomes interesting, because advertising then becomes a tax for people that aren't prepared or cannot pay the monthly subscription to get the content.
Absolutely.
Now, advertising is a tax that poor people pay, are the words of Scott Galloway, and it's a really interesting concept because it starts to put the whole advertising industry in some kind of perspective. If you think that advertising is a kind of an irritating experience,
that's right,
now, and that those that can afford to do it will pay to remove themselves from having to be exposed to advertising. And those that can't have to endure advertising. And we've seen it, Spotify's early versions of Spotify, I think they still run a kind of an ad-funded model. Facebook obviously carries advertising with this implied deal that you make as a Facebook user, which we talked about, where you get access to it for free.
But that's a terrible state of affairs, right, for the marketing industry. If only the people that are going to be watching your ads are those people that are either ambivalent towards advertising or become resentful of the advertising that they're seeing,
yeah.
because they're not willing to pay for a non-advertising model,
yeah.
then that's kind of the end, I think, of kind of advertising.
Yeah, exactly. And that kind of two sides of the coin. It's either a tax that people pay, or it's the price that you pay in giving up, like data, for example. It's a price you pay to get access to some kind of utility. In both scenarios, advertising is not playing a very positive role. So that's the real challenge, right, that you're talking about.
Yeah, and it's not playing a positive role because it's not relevant, and generally speaking, the advertising isn't very good.
Yeah.
So I think one of the key questions is, why has there been such a lack of attention from marketeers on creating truly memorable, great advertising, as there once was? And I think some of the blame for that, if not all of it, can be placed on media's shoulders.
Yeah, that's our hypothesis.
Well, it is, but it's been so confusing, so complicated. It has promised so much, and I actually think it's been a massive distraction for marketeers, and they've kind of focused all of their attention on the wonderful things that media promises.
Yeah.
And they've actually taken their eye off some of the quality and the craftsmanship of creating truly great advertising.
Yeah, true. And also I think because audiences have fragmented, although probably not as far as we think. It's not like everybody's only in their own media. There's still mass viewing opportunities or mass consumption opportunities. There's a danger that a marketer spreads the message too thin, or it becomes too vanilla. Ironically, because it should be more relevant, more targeted, more appropriate to fulfill David Ogilvy's great promise about advertising.
Yeah.
But that means that the quality, instead of making, as we were saying before, when you had a few TV spots you had to fill, you had to make your ad really good to stand out. Maybe there's not that emphasis anymore because it's you can connect, and maybe it's just got a bit lazy.
Yeah, and also I think it's to do with money, right? Resources. And it comes back to Mark Pritchard's kind of craft versus crap kind of big speech.
Yeah, exactly.
So many marketers have been investing and perhaps wasting so much money on the murky supply chain and media that they haven't had the resources to invest properly behind creating brilliant advertising.
Yeah. One of the things that's been quite successful, though, it's been really interesting to observe is the skippable ad. Google's kind of true view, upfront kind of pre-roll that you can skip after 5 seconds, and you're probably very familiar with that. That's as an advertising mechanic is really interesting because it puts obviously the power totally back to the consumer, which I think these days you have to allow them the control. We can't block blockers, and we can't avoid skipping ads, and we can't avoid lack of attention. You just have to make better stuff. So we've got to make better quality stuff. But that mechanic of that is really interesting because it encourages, the creative process to raise the bar, to hold attention, and it means that the marketer has to then play within the dynamics of the customer, again being in control. So that's really good. I think the premise of having one great ad as your gateway to a piece of content is a really nice idea. It's too much stuff. Instead of doing so much and thin slicing budgets and trying to do everything, what if you just made one great ad and you tried to target that around content that was really of really high quality?
And that became an appointment to view.
Yeah, and these days we think about it in terms of the Super Bowl, as these kind of appointment to view ads. But we were reminiscing as 40-somethings now. People used to go to the cinema, used to get there early to see the ad reel, because that was quite a highlight of going to the movies. People now obviously turn up bang when the film starts to avoid the ads. So the quality's dropped out of it. There's there's potential from a customer side to accept great advertising in response to accessing a utility or a tool like Facebook, or YouTube, or for watching a movie or a piece of TV content.
But when they get it right, the social currency that comes with it. I mean, just look at John Lewis and the Christmas ads, right? I mean, when that level of investment and attention is invested in creating great advertising, then it just permeates the people that are out there, and it will work.
So that was our hypothesis. Kind of media mess has distracted marketers from marketing. What does that mean for media? Well, it just means that going into next year, we'd expect a lot more businesses to be really obsessing about their operating model for media in the way that Mark Pritchard laid out for P&G. Others have followed. we think CMOs, marketing directors, will want to cease to be distracted by media mess, put in place the structures and the controls to make that problem kind of go away or improve so that they can focus back on the craft of advertising and make everything better for everybody. Okay, good week 4.
The young generals of GroupM.
Yes.
So this week we heard that Rob Norman, the Chief Digital Officer of GroupM, is retiring, and he's
spring chicken is. He's only 59 or something.
Well, but he's kind of opening the way for the new breed of digital kind of leaders within GroupM. So hopefully they'll step up to the challenge.
Yeah.
And it's been a bad week for.
Well, I'm going to go with the same story actually. So a bad week, given everything that we've been talking about in this episode, which is the challenges facing the media supply chain, both from the vendor, the agency, and the marketer side. It's a shame to lose people potentially like Rob from the business that have, very few people that have that level of, exposure and control and perhaps influence across these different cohorts. And so perhaps the industry needs a little bit more of that kind of leadership. So, we wish Rob well, but the timing is maybe not good for everybody else. Okay, question of the week. Has the media mess distracted marketers from being good marketers?
Yes, no, whatever.
Please vote up there. But that's your media snack for this week. Thank you very much for watching.
See you next week.